All right, you are amazing for sticking with me, learning this amazing spiritual technology that is so unbelievable, that can totally transform our lives when we put it into action. Now, it's super important because we just spoke about the poison of resentment that literally creates hypertension. It's bad news. We don't want it. However, while we're talking about poison, we have to speak about something else that's super, super critical. And we're speaking about feeling good. Basically, in a way, that's what this whole lecture is about. One of the most important things that you can do is you have to eat healthy. One of the greatest doctors in history was named Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. He wrote over 10 medical books. He wrote an encyclopedia, basically, of all the medicine up to his time. He was a super genius. Now, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon says, and studies are proving this. In fact, I recently just saw from Harvard Medical School, 75% of cancer. So that's the number 2 killer. And the same thing applies to heart disease. I don't know the exact percentages, but many, if not most diseases are all preventable. The body, and this is so important, very few people know this or realize this, and that's why I'm going to say it. The body is always in a state of war. We are, in fact, always getting cancer. And we are always killing cancer. There are 2,000 different kinds of cancer. What is cancer? It's just a bad replication of a gene. And that's what we're doing all the time, is we're replicating genes. So if you have good, basically, soldiers going through your bloodstream, you've got nice white blood cells going around, so then they identify and they kill all the cancers. Now, let's just talk facts, because there are 1,000,001 diets out there. Again, this is based on Harvard. The one diet that has been proven over and over and over again to be the thing that keeps people healthiest is the Mediterranean diet. And basically, the Mediterranean diet doesn't really have meat. It has some fish. It's high on vegetables, high on olive oil, and all this basic stuff. But the big question that the Harvard researchers wanted to discover is, why does the Mediterranean diet work? There's so many diets, and everybody's going to say, oh, this works. But why? What is the ingredient in the Mediterranean diet that makes it a diet that your body is healthier? And that's a fact. And it boils down to one thing, and that is called fiber. Fiber is super, super, super critical. Fiber controls your blood sugar. And whenever you have anything, whether it's fructose or sucrose, in general, you should never have sugar. But whatever you have, let's say there are these fruit juices, I don't know, 26 grams of sugar, you have to make sure that the fiber content is at least 1 to 4 of the sugar. 1 to 4, 1 to 5, ideally 1 to 4. Because if you have that, it then lowers the sugar. The other thing, and this is super critical, is fiber traps cholesterol. Cholesterol is the reason, the number 1 killer, which is heart attacks. Now, we need cholesterol. The body itself produces cholesterol. Every cell needs cholesterol. But like everything, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. And so therefore, fiber is your antidote to the number 1 killer in the body. It's really quite simple. And the best way to get fiber is through your fruits and vegetables. So again, you want to mainly be focused on vegetables, getting the fiber from the vegetables. You also want the fruit. Now, of course, we know, and this is also very important, very few people know this, there's what's called the omega-3, omega-6 ratio. You need to have a 1 to 4 ratio. That's different types of oil. So your typical oil, whether it's olive oil, I'm not sure, but I think it's also omega-6. But your typical oil, even if it's canola oil, it's omega-6 oils. Your omega-3 basically comes from flax seeds, it comes from nuts, it comes from fish. That's where you get your omega-3. The proper ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, right? So all fats are basically omega-3, omega-6. The proper ratio is 1 to 4. That's from an Israeli study. The average ratio of a person in the kind of Western diet is 1 to 40. Because we're getting all this fat from all these junk sources. So when it comes to kind of using fat. You should be super careful to basically eliminate meat from your diet. The fat of meat has shown to block insulin from getting into the cells. It creates a little like fatty wall around the cells, and it blocks insulin, or which insulin is very super important, because insulin is what carries the glucose, and you need glucose in all the cells. And fat, anyway, so that's the fat from red meat. You basically want to eliminate red meat. You want to have some fish. You want to have your omega-3. They say not to have more than a palm full of animal protein a day. Animal protein, in fact, speeds up the cell replication, and that can actually speed up, like we said, we're always getting these little cancer cells. And you actually see it. It's quite amazing on a video. You could see this, that a person on a vegetarian diet, they have twice the rate of killing cancer cells, twice the rate. So basically, I'm not advocating no animal protein, but a very minimal amount, not to have meat, and to have effectively, when it comes to oils, to have olive oil, to have maybe a little bit of chicken, a little bit, let's say an egg or two, a little bit of fish. You got to have your main diet from fruits and vegetables. Now, let's talk about gluten, right? Everybody's on the gluten thing. Gluten is a problem. I think it brings down in the Talmud, and there's Israeli research that shows that in the morning you have to have 400 calories, very important, the breakfast. So I think in the breakfast to have 1 or 2 slices of bread is okay. And even then it should be whole wheat. There's a massive difference. Again, whole wheat has fiber. It controls your blood sugar level. Basically, the problem with gluten is, and this is a super critical problem, is that we have in the gut a gut lining. And the gut lining is super critical. It's just 1 cell thick. And if that opens up, what it does is it allows, it's called leaky gut syndrome. It allows in these little pieces of food to get in. And those pieces of food become inflammation. I'm not going to go into all the science. There are people that know this a lot better than me. The thing is that gluten is not good. And I'm going to conclude with one final benefit of fiber, which is super critical, and something that Rambam, who was one of the greatest doctors ever, says. He says all the food you eat, no matter if you're eating the healthiest or the worst, one thing matters more than all of that, and that is to be regular. He says your excrement should be like diarrhea, or close to the consistency of diarrhea. And I'm very careful. I notice that when I have gluten, that when I have too much animal protein, it creates it stuffs things up. And so therefore you really want to be focused on these foods, these lighter foods, the foods that are filled with fiber. That keeps you regular. It goes without saying that you need 8 cups of water a day. Super important, because the 8 cups of water flush out your kidneys. There's a very big theory that actually most heart attacks are related to kidney failure. You look at a lot of people that pass away, they'll often say renal failure, which is kidney failure. You need, and God gave us a system. If your urine is yellow, that means you need to be drinking more water. You have to have basically clear urine. And last but not least, vitamin D is very, very underestimated. Vitamin D is a critical function for the body. You get it with 10 minutes of sunlight. You can take vitamin D supplements, but it's a critical component in the body. So listen very carefully to what I'm saying. I don't just randomly say things. This is based on a super amount of great research. If you do the diet that I said, you will eliminate 90% of the diseases that can come to you. Think about all the diseases, terrible diseases. If you're strict in the diet that I just told you, you will eliminate, and not only that, you will feel good. I can tell for myself, you feel much better. It goes without saying that you should also at least take a half-hour walk a day or do 10 minutes of vigorous exercise. That, of course, all the studies are showing is super important. Our sedentary lifestyle is a very quick way to the grave.